How's it going, John?
Hey, Eric. It is going well tonight. How are you?
I'm a little tired, to be honest.
As am I. I actually was up super late last night. I was doing a bunch of stuff this past weekend on the tractor and mowing and stuff like that, and so I was listening to a book on Audible, and I was getting to the end of it. And so last night around 11:30, I was like, I need to put the book down now, or I need to go to bed now, because it was clearly getting towards the end. But I did not. So I kept listening. I think it ended not long before 1, and then I was up early again this morning for work. So I'm definitely tired.
If there's like only 50 pages left of the book and I'm tired, it's like, no, I just need to finish it because I can't not finish it at this point. So I hear you on the book.
Totally.
Sometimes you just can't put it down.
Totally. It's kind of funny because audiobooks, I don't know, I'm trying to decide. Didn't have any pre-thought in this. I think that I am as bad with audiobooks as I am with regular books. You know, I've sat in the car to listen to another 10 minutes if I didn't have someplace to be.
I have yet to get into audiobooks. I still read mostly on my Kindle, but occasionally we have the trip to the library. I still need to try out that library app, to be honest. Thinking about it.
Yeah, you do. Libby. Actually, Shirley caught me listening to the audiobook this weekend, and I told her, she's driving kids to camp and stuff like that, and I'm like, you should get you should be listening to books on Audible. And she's like, yeah, Libby you can check out audiobooks now from the library. And I'm like, even better. That's fantastic. So, hey, I guess I guess big news in our house. We bought a new car.
Oh,
this happens like
right.
once a decade.
Well, let's qualify the term new to you.
Oh, of course. Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't. I should have qualified. Yeah. So the funny thing about this, and we don't have to dwell on this, but it's fun. It's fun. She's enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. A couple things. A, it's a manual, which is hard to find a manual these days. And B, our qualifying criteria was a very small Venn diagram, because we wanted something that had at least 30, like minimum 30 miles per gallon. Had to fit 4 of us, because there's 4 of us, and has to fit a cello. And let me just tell you, the number of economical good gas mileage cars that fit a cello is not awesome. And under a relatively small to what most people would spend on buying a car. So, but we wound up with a 2013 Volkswagen Jetta wagon that has like 40,000 miles on it, and was pretty cheap. And it has been reprogrammed, so I know.
I was going to say, has it been patched?
It has been patched. So yeah, I mean, we looked for a hybrid. I'm not sure that you can buy an electric car short of a Tesla, which I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't fork out that kind of money that will actually fit a cello, which is funny. All right. Anyway. Okay. Sorry. What about you? What else is new with you this week?
Well, going on the yawning theme.
Okay.
My daughter and I saw Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Yawn.
It was so, and we went. I just love to go see the movies. But my daughter, who's now in an animation program in college, she gets excited about the mathematical bits of the animation, because all the monsters were clearly CG.
Sure, CG.
And she's all into seeing how they did the rigging, and which is the skeleton parts, and how they move, and the lighting, and how everything works. And it was really just enjoyable to chat with her during the movie because there was nobody else in the theater either. And after the movie, about just generally the mechanics of how a movie like that was made and how they would do, how certain things could be done. And, she's like, I don't know how they did this. So she had to go Google and find out how certain things were done. I guess there's forums where they discuss this clearly because it's the internet. There's probably YouTube channels on it.
Probably.
So, anyways,
that's
that
cool.
was fun. So the movie wasn't
it was worth talking about
but it was
the
a lot of
mechanics.
fun to talk with my daughter about, how the mechanics of the movie. And I just love to go sit in a movie theater and be entertained anyway. So
that's awesome.
it was fun.
That's cool. Yeah. We actually went and saw Men in Black International this weekend too, which I have a feeling was better than Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
There's not much of a bar.
But yeah, it was enjoyable seeing Thor like pick up a little hammer and throw it at a bad guy. That was pretty funny. Yeah. Anyway,
I told my wife about that gag because she really liked Thor Ragnarok, and I said, "What?" I asked her if she wanted to go see the Men in Black, and she's like, "I don't know. I haven't seen if it's good or not." She'll wait for the reviews to decide if she's a little bit more discerning in her movie.
She has taste, does she?
Than clearly I am. So
that's funny. No, the funny thing about that is that it was in a preview, and Shirley, my wife, busted a gut when we first saw that, and I didn't catch it, and she elbowed me. She's like, "Why am I the person laughing? You're the nerd here."
That's right.
So anyway, that was pretty funny.
All right.
Okay.
Should we get into a little follow-up?
Sounds good. Let's go.
Last week we talked about the supply chain attack.
The Android. Mm-hmm.
The Android vendor where it was deep in the firmware, so there was no getting rid of the malware. And Krebs, in Krebs fashion, goes into great detail to follow the breadcrumbs to find out who and what company was because Google wasn't really saying. They were just saying, "Hey, we found this." And if you want to see how a
investigative reporter,
thank you, does the work, he kind of spells it all out. Here's the breadcrumbs I followed.
I have not read this article, but I'm scrolling through it now, and I love it when he does this.
Yeah,
we saw a talk by him. Was that 2 years ago? He was really good.
I think so. Yeah,
he was really good. I really enjoyed listening to him.
So just quick follow up on that supply chain attack. Just a little more detail if you were curious.
Awesome. So since you had the follow up, shall I do my topic first? We'll go out of order, at least from our notes. So my first topic this week was something that happened. Was this on Monday? When was this? This was earlier this week, where the internet went offline. Chunks of the internet went offline for a while, seemingly caused a large problem. And I thought that it was a Cloudflare problem because I saw items that were like, "Oh, Cloudflare's having problems." That's sort of the immediate stuff I saw on Twitter and stuff like that. But Cloudflare posted a blog that is really legible. I think we've talked about a couple of their blogs on the podcast, and I've definitely read more of them. They do a good job of kind of talking the details, but without being inscrutable. So anyway, they did not really pull any punches on this, which I don't know how the relationships are between some of the big ISPs, but they are definitely calling out Verizon here in no small way. So the title is How Verizon and a BGP Optimizer Knocked Large Parts of the Internet Offline Today. And there was one quote, I'll just say, Let me see if I pull this up here real quick. I'm pulling this out from the, cut to the end sort of thing in a way, but it says there's no good reason other than sloppiness or laziness they wouldn't have such limits in place. So it's, yeah. Oh, and they also said, by the way, AT&T's enabled these safety mechanisms already. So they're calling them out on multiple ways. But so the gist of this, though, is that there's, for routing in the internet, the service providers all have to know how to route traffic and who's next in the chain of where to route them. And the protocol they use for this is called BGP, or Border Gateway Protocol. And it's basically a way that the networks exchange, in fact, this is what networks exchange route information. So how to get from where you are to somewhere else. So, and they're essentially, I believe my mental model of these is that they're basically like more and more specific regexes or prefixes of this is where you go. So, if you're going for an IP address of, that begins with this, then your next hop is, to the next provider down the chain. But the routes can be very general or very specific, and they basically optimize for more specific routes, and because it's better to say, and they use some navigation analogies in here. So they say, for example, a route to Buckingham Palace, for example, is more specific than a route to London. So, right, if you know the exact destination you're going, the internet was crazily well designed. It has held up in an amazing fashion and it's not exactly the same way as it was when it was first conceived, but it's amazing how well the distributed nature, decentralized nature of all of the protocols pretty much that underlie it work. And how I was talking with a friend earlier this week too about the difference between Ethernet and token ring, and how, at the beginning, people couldn't even believe that things like Ethernet would wind up being better than token ring, because, Ethernet, you have a random waiting period. The computer backs off a random bit and then sees if it can basically throw its bytes on the shared medium. And how could that possibly be better than having a planned, coordinated, agreed on thing like token ring was on the network? But no, it actually works out pretty well in mass. Anyway, it's kind of funny. So anyway, the net of this is that there's a provider in Pennsylvania, DQE Communications, that basically published a bunch of routes that they should not have been allowed to go. The analogy where they were using, again, the traffic analogy, it's basically like, what happens if Google Maps routed all the traffic for a major city through a neighborhood street?
That's called Waze, by the way. There's already a thing called that.
I have done that. Yes. I have leveraged that. But so I guess, yeah, at the extreme, once everybody's using Waze, that really, really won't work. But
exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, so basically this small ISP was publishing routes that were that basically eventually Verizon just happily accepted and published to the rest of the peering networks,
right? Which
then basically shunted a bunch of traffic down to this, I don't know how big they are, but let's say that a small ISP in Western Pennsylvania. I don't know even know if they're Western Pennsylvania. Sorry, that was going for a Groundhog Day quote. And Western Pennsylvania. So and basically what Cloudflare is doing is they're saying, look, Verizon, this is your fault, right? You're the one that is supposed to be ensuring that you can't spoof routes, that, the downstream ISP shouldn't be allowed to claim that you could route, other people's traffic through them. And
right.
yeah, the leak should have stopped at Verizon. And then it actually goes into some nice detail about some of the actual impacts, and then the final cool thing I guess I'll call out on this is there's a framework that I haven't read about before. I'm not really in this networking space, so they've have this other framework called RPKI that is designed to basically be kind of like what we talked about on caller ID signing, I don't know, a couple months ago, where you basically are have a certificate that says these are the routes that I'm allowed to create or publish. And Cloudflare's deployed it last year. Clearly AT&T has it at least. I don't know how many other people have, but anyway, that's kind of the end here, is that this only happened because there were some lax practices among some large players in the industry, basically. So anyway, that was kind of the story of what happened.
Yeah.
And it was kind of
a lot of the internet infrastructure that nobody knows about or pays attention to is built on the concept that people will try to do the right thing. Nobody's bad. Right?
I guess. Yeah.
It wasn't built with the idea, how can people exploit this? It was built with the idea, how can we make this happen?
Yeah. Well, it's architecturally elegant for sure, but you're right. I mean, the malicious entities, there's so many things at every level. ARP spoofing is something that's very similar to this, right? Where you basically say, I'm
accidentally malicious.
Right.
Or unintentionally malicious.
Yeah. So two other, I guess, cool things. I'm looking at my notes on this. Two funny things. I didn't know what a Vogon was.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I do think those were Vogons with a V. But yes, yeah, that does it does ring a bell. But a Vogon is a bogus IP address from the Vogon space, which is a set of IP addresses not yet officially assigned to any entity. Blah, blah, blah. A Vogon is also known as a Vogon space or Vogon IP address. So that was, I think I found that on this other link, bgp.he.net, which was linked from the Cloudflare article. But the cool thing was I must have spent a number of minutes like poking around on the it's HE stands for Hurricane Electric, and they have got a bunch of charts out here about exchanges, what exchanges are up, what exchanges are down, who has the most internet exchanges that they participate in, there's a DNS report, there's just tons and tons and tons of stuff out here. But one of the things out here on the left hand side you'll see is a Vogon report, which I was like, what the heck's a Vogon? I didn't remember. How about you? What's your topic?
So actually my topic comes from a guy we work with. Wayne sent us this one, and it's about Docker.
Ooh.
We have talked in the past about vulnerabilities in packages from, Node or GitHub or other places where you just download free open source.
I think my favorite one we talked about there was when there were those packages that had the crypto miners embedded in them.
Yeah. Well, so this is an article where someone has done some research into Docker containers. And what a Docker container is a pre-packaged install. You think of it as a fully pre-packaged install to do something. So there are large amounts of Docker containers out there that if you want, like I've been playing, this one caught my eye as well because I've been playing a lot with Docker at work. If you want a Jupyter notebook to be able to just spin up and run some PySpark stuff and play around with that, there's a Docker container for that, which allows you just to pull the Docker, run it, and the source is, the environment is all completely set up for you to just run and use, which is great. And a lot of one of the things in this article that talks about is looking at the vulnerabilities that are in these various Docker containers potentially. And there seems to be large amounts because if a Docker container is, for the most part, a static set of files.
Sort of depends on how often they're updated, but yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. So you pull down your Docker container to run whatever you're going to run, and it's going to have, at the time, maybe no known vulnerabilities, but over time, unless you continually update that Docker image, that pre-built image, or rebuild that image, it will develop vulnerabilities over time as people find them.
Sure.
And one of the ones as a home user, and this is actually one I've been looking into because I kind of run a bunch of junk at home just for fun. There's a open source Home Assistant, which gives you access from an open source perspective to all sorts of IoT devices throughout your house to kind of manage and control and use those. And that was,
wow.
That one has over 80 million downloads and 721 open vulnerabilities.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. If you are a consumer of Docker images, just be aware that just like anything else that's kind of pre-built that you're pulling from some open source, there can be potentially large amounts of vulnerabilities. You got to keep your Docker files and Docker images as up to date as you do anything else. So,
well, whoever's maintaining you're sort of relying on whoever's maintaining the base image to apply
keep it
updated patches to whatever packages are in there. Absolutely.
Yep. So,
and I guess the other thing I would say, if you're doing anything with Docker, you should apply the principle of least privilege or least packages. and
right.
I think having both a minimal base image. So I use a Ubuntu Docker container for lots of stuff just because it's kind of convenient and familiar. But for production, you should probably use something that's minimal, both for performance and also just for sort of the surface area of, what can, if a package isn't included, a CVE against it, you don't care about.
Yep. So just another reminder, pay attention to what you're using. Nothing is safe from, there are lots of different ways you can be using vulnerable software.
There are many, many ways. I like this quote. Over 60% of the top Docker files held a vulnerability that had a Kenna risk score above 330. And over 20% of the files contained at least one I assume when they say files. Top Docker. That's funny. They're saying Docker files as in Docker space files, and really it should be Docker files, like all one word plural, because they're probably literally meaning the Docker file, which is in Docker speak the actual file you use to describe your container. Okay, that was TMI. Yeah. And over 20% contained at least one vulnerability that would be considered high risk under the Kenna scoring model. The mean average number of CDs per container is 176. Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So
that's a lot.
And that's actually a good that's actually a good link. The where you read that quote from is a link to another blog post from this post, which is actually a pretty good article as well. Yeah. It goes into a little bit more detail on those. So pay attention to what you're using.
It's general basic security hygiene is always the first thing to be done.
All right, and then my second article that I think you actually posted this last week, and it was like the day after we recorded last week, but was a ZDNet article on a Firefox 0-day, and not just 1 0-day, but 2 0-days. So there was a Firefox 0-day that allowed the attacker to run a remote attacker to execute code inside the Firefox browser, but then the attacker would also need a separate 0-day to escape the sandbox to then run code on the underlying OS, and they actually had found one. And what was interesting about this article is the title is Firefox 0-day was used to in attack against Coinbase employees, not its users. So that's this amazing. Actually went, Coinbase is a very popular, probably the most popular cryptocurrency exchange. And so this attack was going after the employees of the company, not you or me. I think you probably have 10 or 15 or 20 or 5, depending on the time of day.
Dollars
in Bitcoin.
Yeah. I think that was from you sending me $5 about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
2 years ago. Yeah. So anyways, so apparently they found it. The Coinbase security team found what was going on and reported it, and then also started sharing it with other organizations that they also believe were targeted. So
wow.
This one is interesting in that it was the attack came from a spear phishing email to try to trick people to go to a web page, and if they happen to be using Firefox, then that page would download the attack onto their systems and would collect and then exfiltrate stuff like the browser passwords and other data. And this attack worked for both Mac and Windows. Was also interesting. And the
I hadn't caught that.
Malware was tailored for whether or not the browser was running on a Mac or Windows. So a great little reminder that they can go after the company and it still can affect you if you have a relationship with the company.
Sure. Probably, yeah. I would imagine that going so targeted is a strategy to stay under the radar, and sort of once that's either successful or not, or there's a bigger risk of being disclosed, then it might make more sense, or it might make sense for them to have opened that up a little bit and gone after users of Coinbase.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. One of the tricky things there would be, how many users of Coinbase aren't using the app on their phone instead of a desktop web browser? And of those, some percentage that are using a desktop web browser, what percentage of them are using Firefox as that browser? And then what percentage of them have actual real money in the Coinbase wallet? And don't have two-factor or something like that enabled, so that a browser-based exploit could essentially rewrite a transaction or initiate a transaction to move money without some form of verification.
Automation makes even the most complex thing easy.
I know. Well, that's the thing. That's totally true. Totally true. And a small percentage, if it doesn't take any effort, might still be.
Yep.
Might still be worth it. Anyway. Yeah, that's
cool.
That's tricky. That's tricky. Well, how about something fun? it's kind of work-ish related, I guess. I don't know. This isn't. I normally try to choose something fun that's like really really fun. This is maybe closer to Eric fun here. I don't know. No,
it's just got shady over here.
Yeah, I'm throwing shade. Yeah, no.
Do the kids still say that?
I don't know. Who knows? Clearly, since I know it, then no. So, this is an article that is scaling from 2,000 to 25,000 engineers on GitHub at Microsoft. So, this article is full of interesting tidbits and advice and just it's a eternal article. It goes on and on and on, which is it's probably not interesting to most people, but I'm very interested in sort of the mechanics of teams and processes and imagine going from, so in 2015 he posted about their experience going from 20 to 2,000 engineers, which is amazing. And then from 2,000 to 25,000 engineers on GitHub.
Well, and this is engineers working in Microsoft's open source program office. This isn't GitHub, and Microsoft bought GitHub, right?
Microsoft did buy GitHub. No. These aren't people writing GitHub Enterprise. No, right. These are Microsoft employees contributing to or working on a project on GitHub in the open.
Right.
So, which one of the things that has been sort of a repeating theme, we've mentioned it at least a few times over the last year, is how shocked and impressed and happy I am about the fact that Microsoft has embraced open source in a tremendous way, and they're open sourcing things that 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I would never have thought they would. And and some of those things are, not everything's wildly successful, but some of them are stupendously successful, like Visual Studio Code. It's crazy. And the fact that they developed a new terminal all out in open source, and they're open sourcing. In fact, I think I read this should have been something fun, or we should have maybe even mentioned. I think they're open sourcing or planning on open sourcing the all of .NET. Did you see that?
I didn't. I missed that. If that's true,
maybe I saw something.
It wouldn't surprise me though.
Right. I mean, I saw. Gosh, now they'll say, no, they didn't. But anyway, Microsoft's has been doing a tremendous amount of work, and this is just a post full of info on, what are some of the challenges, what are some of the successes, what are some of the core principles that they've had to do and that they suggest, and so I just thought this was a very cool article, and it's a ton of amazing stuff. But some of the basic things in here are about self-service, which is required, about elimination and simplifying processes instead of kind of putting up barriers, automation in that. So, don't try to ask projects what third-party components they use. Just look at the source and figure out what third-party components they use.
Right. So
there's tons of automation, and another thing that was mentioned in here is that they're using other open source projects instead of and contributing to them instead of just trying to build everything themselves. Even Microsoft, and I think that's fantastic. So anyway, this article is great. I was reading it earlier, and I was like, oh, this is going to be my something fun for tonight, even though it's kind of a weird something fun.
Well, my something fun, As you know, I have been a fan of the Raspberry Pi from very early on. I have
you have something real fun. Okay, that's awesome.
I have more Raspberry Pis floating around my house than I probably should admit. But this is now the Raspberry Pi 4 is now here, and the Raspberry Pi Foundation claims it's finally built a tiny computer that can replace your desktop PC. So this is the Raspberry Pi 4 specs. So listen to what you got here. It comes with 4K support, USB 3.0, and it'll support dual display and up to 4 gigabytes of RAM.
That's astonishing.
So for your $35, you can get a Raspberry Pi 4 with just 1 gig of RAM, or 2 gigs for $45 and 4 gigs for $55. So it's, I don't know, it feels like it's doing the Apple thing. You increase the memory and just charge more for just the memory. But I thought this was...
Yeah, but 4 gig... I mean, 4 gigs not much, but for a Pi, it's pretty darn good.
For a full-on Linux computer that can run dual monitors and replace your desktop PC. Yeah. So...
I'm sorry, I won't quite go that far, but that is astonishing. Look at that.
Well, it'll replace some...
Yeah, I mean, so long as you're not running an Electron app, right?
As long as you don't want to run JavaScript, you'll be fine. That was my joke.
I'm sorry. Well, did I make that for you?
I've converted you.
No, you haven't. I've never said anything bad about JavaScript in my life. Oh, wait. No, that's fantastic.
Anyways.
Look at that.
I thought that was really cool.
3 times as powerful as the Pi 3 and 40 times as powerful as the original Pi.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like it. I do not have one yet. I have not ordered one yet. And mostly it's because I still have... I don't know if I should admit it. 2 Raspberry Pi 3s still in the box, not used on the projects I wanted to use them for. So I probably should use those for the projects I want there before I buy my next Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, so I bet you could sell those for $20, and then you could add $35 to get a 4 gig Raspberry Pi 4.
Hey John, you need a Pi 3?
I've actually got 2 Pi 3s sitting in a drawer here. I'm actually not kidding. I mean, so yeah, I think I've got 4 around, a couple of which are in use, but a couple of which are just sitting in a drawer over under the TV. I bought, basically those are the ones I got for the kids to just play with, and they were like, oh, that's kind of cool. They played with them for like 2 days, and then we're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Kids these days. Whatever. No. Anyway.
Give me an iPad. Give me iPad or give me death.
Well, my son got his Chromebook for high school, and he's been enjoying it. Although he came in saying, that touchpad is awful. Do you have a mouse I could use? Like, yes, I'm sure I do. Go look in that drawer over there. Hey, yay, I'm so glad I kept that mouse. And then it's going to be dead.
Do you have any USB to PS2 adapters?
No, actually the problem, okay, so in the interest, of course I do. And then B, his actual thing was, hey, I tried these other 2 mice. They didn't seem to work. Do you have any more? So I'm like, so did you throw out the 2 that didn't work? No, anyway. So I will have to make sure they go in the trash. Oh, funny. All right. That's TMI. Yes, I have hardware around here that I really should just donate or recycle.
It's all right. We're not too bad on time. I won't have to edit much out.
There's a number of things there you should edit, dude. All right, man. Call it a show?
Call it a show. Have a good night, John.
Sounds good. All right. Talk to you next week, Eric.